All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another Metabolic Mentor podcast. I'm your host, functional nutritionist Vince Pitstick, back again to share another amazing transformation. We love to talk about all the stories related to health, entrepreneurship, and fitness. Amazing transformations where you can really learn and feel the story. Today we have a pretty incredible entrepreneur transformation. This is the wonderful Caroline O'Connor. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. So Caroline also, she is Director of Education at Metabolic Mentor University. She is also one of the top dietitians and coaches at Nutrition Dynamic. And we wanted to tell her incredible story and her rise at only being 26 years old. Mm-hmm. I got that right? 26.
Yes, you did.
I got it right. And being the head of an organization and coming out of the dietetics world. And it really led itself to a great conversation about dietetics.
Yeah.
The state of dietetics, right? And seeing this world of nutrition explode, but dietitians really not be represented.
Right.
Right. And so we thought today would be an amazing topic to cover heavily, like where did the dietitians go and what can be the future for the dietetics field? But before we get into all that, I really want to focus on you, right? Like you're very driven. I've gotten to know you. You're extremely talented and driven. And I'd like people to just kind of get to know a little bit about you for a minute. But like, I also want to know, because coming out of the Hybrid Health Summit, which check out hybridhealthsummit.net, shameless plug. The whole event is about from pain to purpose to prosperity. And most people do not get into the health field or are driven hardcore enough to be successful in it without a pain point. So I always make people get a little uncomfortable on here. And I want to talk about what was the pain that drove the purpose that now has created all this prosperity for you and the hundreds of people that you've worked with, hell, thousands at this point, and now all the thousands of students that you inspire.
Yeah. So a little bit about my background and story. My pain point probably was just heading to college and being completely unprepared for the world that would be. And so struck with things that I had never dealt with before. I was always in a family that was health conscious. So it was never really an issue for me growing up. It wasn't something that I felt like I had to try super hard at. And then when I went to college, I started getting major depression, major anxiety. I was bloating and didn't understand why my stomach was like blowing up. And it would be like a 6-pack one day and it would be just bloated to the extreme and my clothes wouldn't fit the next day. I started getting acne, and it was just this vicious cycle where the only thing that I knew how to control in that point to try and make myself feel better was food and exercise, and doing it in the wrong ways.
Now, how old are you at this time?
Like 18,
now,
19.
Okay. 18, 19.
Yeah.
And knowing something about you too is that you were competitive gymnast. Did you do that
when I was a kid? Yeah.
You did that at a younger age. So you kind of got into athletics a little bit. Then,
always
fitness,
in sports.
Always in sports.
Yeah.
And then as you started to fully develop over time as a woman, a lot of these kind of issues came with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And actually I found, as many people do, I found fitness first. So I found the bodybuilding community first. I got obsessed with weightlifting in college. And then you start tuning into all of those influencers at the time who are talking about their nutrition knowledge and macros and how to work your food into your exercise routine. And it just made all of the issues 10 times worse.
See, this is one of those moments as a learning moment for personal trainers, nutritionists, everyone that's not in the medical field. Most people are going to find you first, right? So you become one of the most important, influential people in their lives, and they form a lot of their dieting behaviors and how they feel about their bodies and what fitness actually is from individuals that technically aren't licensed to do so.
Correct.
But it should be incumbent upon them to take that responsibility seriously and guide those minds as best they can, because ultimately they're the most important at that time, because you're most impressionable at that time. So I find that really interesting.
Yeah. And it gets you quick outcomes, right? You get obsessed with weightlifting and you feel strong, you feel confident, you feel empowered, but your gut health is crap. You have acne all over your face. Yeah. Like it just doesn't make sense. But on one side, you're feeling amazing. And so you keep pursuing it. I mean, it literally led me to become a personal trainer amidst my entire dietitian journey.
There you go. Again, most women, people most likely to buy coaching, females between 22 and 55, they start having functional issues around 18, 19. a lot of times they're going to find fitness or they're going to find some avenue that's the opportunity to try to guide them down the right road. But a lot of times because coaches and nutritionists have no idea, they're not outfitted with the tools, don't understand the science or any processes, that they can't guide you correctly.
Yeah.
And then you just end up using a birth control or covering it up with cardio and caloric restriction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end up getting solved, and it only exacerbates. So if we took those people, this industry of fitness, and outfitted them with those tools, they could help millions of people. Totally. And they could create businesses doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. So that's the character arc a little bit here, right? The pain point was like developing into a woman having these some of these health issues.
Yeah.
And then finding fitness, right? And then going hardcore with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Finding like who I was in fitness.
Yeah.
Finding my strength, like my inner strength through fitness.
Yeah, that's another important part, right? That gave you the confidence to tell you could accomplish things.
Yeah.
Fitness is crucial. That's why we cannot demonize it, because it does. For me, it gave me the strength to understand that, like, if I put my mind to something, I can achieve what I set out to do.
Yep.
And so it's so vital that everybody at a younger age get exposed to something like that. But then unfortunately, we don't want it to go the wrong way.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So you become a personal trainer, right? Where do we go from there?
So I am fresh out of school with my dietetics degree, starting my dietetic internship, working at the same time as a personal trainer. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't wait till I can actually help these people, right? Like, I'm going to be a dietitian. I'm going to get to like change their life, change the way that they're doing their nutrition and all of that. But I'm personal training them and thinking that I'm making them worse. Like, I'm like literally watching them get worse in front of my own eyes. They're getting puffier. They're getting inflamed. They're getting more tired. And I'm doing everything that I thought I was supposed to be doing. I'm training them hard. They want to come in. They want to break a sweat and feel exhausted when they leave. Yeah. And I'm doing all that for them. They're like, you're so great. I'm like, but you're not improving. Like, you're not getting healthier. So it was wild to be doing that. And then also trying to go the dietetics route and feeling like there was no crossover. I couldn't figure out how to make the worlds combine.
Yeah. So great point. Yeah, when I started as a trainer, the playbook was, you read all the high protein research, more training. You want to improve the NEAT.
Yep.
Right. You want to get them in a caloric deficit.
Yep.
Right. And you want to try to induce, right, muscle growth, right, and so hypertrophy training.
Yeah.
So it's as many days as you can muster with cardio on top of it. High volume, right, and then get the calories down, but protein high, right. And the assumption was that was going to make people better.
Yeah.
And on one hand, it would for some people who had never dieted that way before.
Yes.
But then you also started noticing over time, they get more swollen. Now they're not losing fat anymore. All these different things are happening to them. Yeah. And we couldn't figure out what that was. Yeah. And I went through the same thing. I kept beating the hell out of people. I'd get quick results, but I noticed over time that was becoming less effective. Yeah. And the more I did it to the same person, it almost became, it just didn't work.
Yeah. The younger they were, it worked. And then as I got into older ages, like females, like 40 and up, it was nothing I was doing was working for them. Like, I could not figure them out as a personal trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. As a personal trainer, I looked at women as small men. Right. So I would just say, oh, well, this is a man and this is a woman. So I'll train them both 6 days. I'll use less weight. Yeah. Right. I'll do a little bit more cardio for the girls. And I'll just reduce the calories some. Perfect, right? Yeah. Because they're the same creature, right? Yeah. No difference in hormones or anything like that, right? That's what I was thinking at the time. And so, okay. So you go through this journey and now you're stuck, right? Because you want to help them and you know that there's tools you do not have to do 360 care, which is how a lot of personal trainers feel. Yeah. They feel like they don't have enough of the tools, but the tools they have is what they have. Exactly. So they keep doing what they're doing. Then you're getting your dietetics degree, you're learning about nutrition, and still, though, it doesn't add up. No. Because in dietetics school, you're learning about eat less, move more, but you're not learning about fitness science. You're not learning about how to blend these two worlds. You're learning about low blood sugars and stuff like that, which I want to hear more about. Yeah. But those worlds didn't seem to fit. Right? No, they didn't. And after I was done strictly personal training and I had actually gotten my RD licensure, I started moving into more of the online coaching with the dietetics degree. And I, again, could not get results. Like, everything I learned from personal training, combining it with everything from dietetics, they still wouldn't lose weight, or we'd get to a point and everything would just stop. And every single tool in the toolbox just did nothing. Mm-hmm. And also they'd come with crazy issues that I
did not know how to address, or like we didn't talk about, and they came with 5 chronic diseases, whereas in dietetics, it's like, let's focus on one. Like, this person just has diabetes. But no, they don't have diabetes and metabolic syndrome and this autoimmune condition, right? And so putting all of those together was like extremely overwhelming at first.
Yeah, so let's stop here for a minute. Let's talk about the state of dietetics, you know. I love the field. I love its potential. I love the people who choose to be them. I love the concept. And theoretically speaking, if the world was very convenient and everything just fit in its own system, you know, and people for endocrine issues could just go to the endocrinologist, and if people with GI issues could just go to GI, and oh, now I have a nutrition issue, I can just go to nutrition. It doesn't work that way. And so I look at a field that could have been so great, and I look at the state of it today. Yeah. And in my mind, I feel like it's in shambles. I mean, the organizations that exist for it, the opportunities that exist, how handcuffed they are. And so I really want to highlight, because here you go, personal trainer, like, ooh, the answer is dietetics. And I hear this all the time. Yeah. They think the solutions is the license to get the information and the permission. Yeah,
the authority. Like, I literally thought that would solve all of my problems.
Yes. and so let's talk about that. You know, it's interesting. I was doing a quick history search here, and I was looking at, because one is like the position itself and the history of it, and knowing same thing, like my kind of hero, Florence Nightingale, 1922 comes up with the concept of dietetics and nursing, which I guess she just had all the good ideas.
Did everything.
She had all the good ideas. If you don't know about Florence Nightingale, get on your job, do a quick Google search. She's a legend. She's queen of healthcare. And so, but when I was looking at it, you know, and I look at the costs and I look at where it grew starting back then, and how much it's actually slowed up, like its market share. So like healthcare right now is growing at 16, 80% a year. Dietetics in 2023 is going to grow 0.08%. Yeah. And when you have 70% of people by 2030 that are going to have a lifestyle disease, dietetics being the frontline defense is the thing getting marginalized the most. And that's not okay. Yeah. So you're coming out of school, right? And they kind of tell you you've got all this opportunity out there for you, right? You pay a hefty amount.
A lot.
Right?
Yeah.
And you walk into a world that really doesn't have as much opportunity as you thought, right? Yeah. Tell me about your experience.
Coming out, I definitely thought that my only options were either working in a hospital with very clinical care, which I knew I didn't like from my internship hours, working in a long-term care facility, whether it's a retirement home or a nursing center, and then food service. And I also knew I didn't want to do that.
And, you know, the crazy thing was I had a big decision to make back in the day when I was a personal trainer and what route I wanted to take my career. Was I going to go down this functional medicine route and work as a rep, maybe coach on the side? Then this new idea of health coaching came up. Or do I go get this authority licensure? And when I looked at the opportunities that were afforded to them, it didn't make sense for me at the time. And when I think about all the people coming through, and I think about people like yourself coming into a field after you've spent so much money, right, to the opportunities that are there at like $20, $25 an hour, just didn't make sense for a future. And that's where we should start right off the bat with the cost of education and the uniqueness of the dietetics field, because it's one of the rare fields that the way that they charge, and I want to hear from you on it. But coming into it, what did your degree cost you?
So the degree, just getting through your 4 years to get your Bachelor of Science in Dietetics, is around like anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on where you go. And then once you get your degree, you still have to go through an entire internship. And so the internship was $10,000 out of pocket up front for another year, where you're working for free, and they tell you that it's recommended that you don't have a job while you do this. So I was still working as a personal trainer because I'm like, my parents aren't supporting me. Like, I'm a grown woman, you know, I'm coming out of college, and I just, like, all that money is down. So you pay all of that, and then you do your clinicals for free for a year.
It's one of the rare fields that happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of fields actually get paid to do
like residency for like doctors and stuff.
But somehow dietitians, it's
we
like,
don't.
No. It's wild. It's wild. It just shows the undervalued nature of the art. Yeah. Right. And then, of course, so now you're about 100K in, and now they're requiring a master's, right?
Yeah, so starting in 2024, anyone who wants to even go for the licensure would have to already complete their master's.
That's just wild to me that in basic nutrition, I'm not talking about people that work with maybe feeding tubes or high risk cases.
Yeah.
But there's levels to this, because to tell people to eat a balanced diet should not require 6 years of school.
No.
Right.
Or even like just post-care for people like coming out of the hospital after their treatment and they're not referred to a dietitian for like very basic nutrition counseling help.
Right. 100%.
How to just survive day to day.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's gotten blown up, overpriced.
Yeah.
Right. And then there isn't even the opportunity in the market there for them.
Not really.
Right. When you see it only growing at 0.08%, and you know the number of dietitians going into the field. We were looking at some numbers. I mean, it's a very small amount. I don't want to give an exact number because I don't want to misrepresent it right now, but very small amount of dietitians actually use the license.
Yeah. And actually, when you're going through school and you're talking to, role models or people who've already kind of been in the field, a lot of them will admit to you that they haven't renewed their license. I already have friends that I graduated with that are debating renewing and upkeeping their license because the job that they're doing doesn't really require it.
Right. And then on top of that, you've gone to school like a doctor, but you're not one. And
you don't have the authority of one. Yeah.
You have no authority that you went for it because you can't make one move.
No.
You can't do anything without consulting with a physician.
Yeah. So in hospitals or clinical care, they actually, in my education personally, we were prepped with the knowledge that going into the hospital, we needed to be strong in our education and confident in our knowledge because the doctors would argue with us.
Right.
We were just told that up front.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And that nothing would have like deflated me more than being like, okay.
Yeah, you're like 19 years old in your class and you're all excited about I'm going to be a dietitian. And that's like what the professor tells you.
You're a not doctor and really can't do anything on your own, but you're training like you're training like you can. And so now, okay, so we're looking at very limited options and still now with the tools that you've learned there, then you come out in the world and use those tools and still not getting the results that you want.
Yeah, and it's because the dietetics education is for the hospital. Like it is for acute care. It is someone is here and they are severely have severe disease progression. They're maybe dying or terminally ill and you're supporting them, right? And that's completely different than going out into real world application of people who are trying to live with their chronic disease and suppress and manage their symptoms or even reduce or prevent chronic disease. Yeah. And so it's two completely different education paths, but it's treated as one. And then you're expected to be able to apply that if you want to go into private practice or do anything other than straight to the hospital.
Yeah, right. So it's really kind of a license to make good employees for the hospitals. Yeah. And then right now the average salary is what?
Like 55 to 65, and that's generous.
Which is about what a personal trainer's is, 45, 50.
Yeah.
Some 40, some 50, depending on where you look. And so here you are, a licensed practitioner, making what a certified individual out there just trying to help people. You left one job to not really step up, and you paid $100,000 and spent 60 years of your life. Not that the information isn't helpful and going through school isn't great. We're not trying to push anyone away from school, but we're talking about the challenges of a field that could do so much and has been marginalized to so little.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I've spent my whole career helping dietitians unlearn what they were taught. I mean, it's my whole career, right? And going against the grain. And so what do you think are three, because we could talk about this all day. What are some of the three areas where you feel that it was misrepresented? I don't want to say misled, because misled would mean that there's a malice involved. Yeah. And it's blissful ignorance and a focus on, it's almost like group think and, experts curse, where they're so focused on one or two things in medicine, like blood sugar and this, that you can't see the big picture, right? And you miss it. So like women that are so focused on fat loss, they stop losing fat. They're not effective at doing it anymore because they weren't thinking about the whole ecosystem of the body. Right. And that's the problem with systems medicine. But what were three things that you had to really unlearn,
Eat less, move more. So just the whole idea of a calorie deficit, we're basically taught that is the Bible to get weight loss. is a caloric deficit, when you go out in the real world and you're like, that doesn't actually work. The next thing that's probably my favorite that I talk about all the time is detox. So kind of the idea that like the liver does everything for you. Detoxes are woo woo, like green juice is dumb, like just all the detox stuff. And then you dive into the functional world and you actually understand all the things the liver needs to function and how big a part of your metabolism the liver is. It just, that blew my mind, because I was one of those like kind of like on my ego, like all these people talking about detox, like you guys don't know what you're talking about. I'm a dietitian. And then to change that perspective was very humbling, to say the least.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And then, okay. And then what do you think is like a good third?
Probably everything around just like cardiovascular health, metabolic syndrome, anything to do with like blood sugar and just heart health in general, I feel like is very undereducated. It's very focused on like hospital-based care. Again, it's not, what are all these things that these people can do in their day-to-day life that will help them improve quality of life?
Yeah. I think part of it is the populations. Like you're in a hospital, you're dealing with really sick. So the data that you're looking at when you're taught in school is everyone who's really sick, who's under stressed because they're not stressing their body, and underactive. And a lot of people that you'll actually see in the world, which the literature isn't showing, is females that are overstressed, right? And have a bunch of different co-mitigating factors.
Yeah.
And you're left unprepared to deal with the people most likely to buy your services coming out of school.
I actually thought coming out of school that most people were eating terribly and never getting off their butt. Like I thought everyone who was struggling with a weight issue had to be lazy and they had to not have any nutrition education. Get my first few clients as a dietitian and they're eating better than I am. Like they're literally eating so clean and so healthy, and they're exercising every day and they're not losing weight and they're not healthy. And so that alone, I was like, well, that checks off like 5 things that I thought I was supposed to talk to you about that I can't use because you're already doing them, you know?
Yeah. And they don't. Yeah. So what you're learning is that like a dietitian has so many options out in the world. And I want to talk about this about your life, but they don't educate you on how to think like an entrepreneur or be prepared to do things on your own out there, because they don't want you to.
Yeah. Like career trajectory is just, it's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's such a shame, because there's so much opportunity out there for dietitians, but they're sitting back waiting for permission, and they have no skills in the world of entrepreneurship. So they don't take action.
Yeah.
So you got all these people with all this information, all this willingness to help, and no action.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the world continues to get sicker and sicker in almost every statistic known. And the people that could help most are on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So you get out there, girl with a lot of health issues, some health issues, comes to find a purpose in life, spends all this money, runs out in the field, doesn't know where to go, right? This is where at some point you decide to take a big risk, which everyone probably told you couldn't do, which was going to online. Because that's how I had come across some of your stuff, because I think you had followed us. And I'm looking at your page and I'm like, okay, here's someone with a lot of talent and skill, and or at least a lot of possibility. And I know making that jump into virtual, which is what I want to speak to for the other dietitians or anybody thinking about getting into the online space. What was that decision like? Because I know people told you couldn't.
I think for me, I'm a very competitive individual. So them saying I couldn't just made me want to do it more, which maybe not everyone would have that response. But for me, I'm just like, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to put my mind to it. I'm going to do it.
That's a tagline right there.
Yeah.
Do what people say you can't.
Yeah. Cut. Hard stop.
That's it. Hard stop. So now you jump out into it and go, oh, it's okay out here. Like the water's fine.
Doing
right?
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Swimming just fine. And then you kind of come across our stuff. How does that all work? And then you decide to like take a chance and come to our coach search. And that was 2020.
Yeah.
2020 coach search.
Yeah. I had stumbled across your page, and I honestly didn't understand how you and Nutrition Dynamic were getting the outcomes. Like I would read the caption and just be like, what is he even talking about? Like I didn't understand the concepts. You're talking about the flush, talking about detox. And again, I was kind of on my high horse of like, what is he doing? Just green juices. So it piqued my interest because the outcomes of your stories in terms of lab work or the health that they were feeling was so different than like, oh, this person did this green juice cleanse and now they're exhausted and like they feel terrible. Do you know what I mean? It was a very stark contrast in terms of your clients were feeling so much better. They were a whole new human coming out on the other side. And I couldn't do that for my clients.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that we were committed, because we knew people thought that we were going to get demonized, and we did a lot. Like we were some shitty detox like salesperson or something that was low quality. And there's a lot of that out there. And so that's the tough part. You're competing against the worst of you in the industry, like, because you're going to get labeled like the extremes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shadiness in the holistic space, which is why I still appreciate science to help us forward. But the truth does exist in the middle.
Yeah.
And so we knew that if we made enough case studies that were miraculous, that kept showing the world out there, that the light would turn on and we would just leave it on for people who were in search. And you were one of those people.
Yeah. And your results were so quick, meaning you could like get the result for the client before they decided they were giving up and they were leaving.
Yes.
So like while my clients were on month 3, we're still like, okay, what are you eating for breakfast? Let's make that more balanced. And they're still not seeing dramatic change in terms of how they feel, whether it's their weight loss or just their day-to-day symptoms. Yeah. So then they're done. Like I'm going to move on. I'm going to find something else. So I couldn't keep them around long enough to get the result that I felt like I could give them either.
For trainers, nutritionists, doctors, functional nutrition allows you to create many wins right away that gets customers buy-in. People can buy your program, but not be bought into your program. What we were able to discover through the 4F method was that we could get a lot of quick wins for individuals, immediately get their buy-in for the long-term outcomes, because we knew we were going to need you longer to make the miraculous changes a reality long-term. Yeah. We weren't trying to get you to, like a pump and dump, get you in and out. Yeah. We really wanted you to have the long-term success, but we knew we needed your buy-in. Yeah. And with functional nutrition, you can create such miraculous early results that people now will be bought in for the long term.
Yeah, they'll stick around to actually build the healthy habits that they need to make this a lifelong change for them. Yeah. Whereas I was starting with, let's build those habits, but they weren't feeling better yet.
Right. The idea in medicine is you don't sell, but the reality is if you want to create miraculous change, you better sell them on a better life. So you have to be able to work a process that's both clinically necessary and effective, but also sells them what they want. Right. They want to look better. Yeah. Right. They want to feel better, but they don't want to just change their blood sugars because their doctor says they're going to die in a few years. Yeah.
It's not enough motivation.
Right. They want to look better now, enjoy their life now. So you better give them what they need now. Right. Or what they want now. Yeah. Excuse me. Let's start over. You have to give them some of what they want now, but put it in place to make sure they get what they need later. Yeah. Like for the long term. Right. And that's a hard balance to find. Otherwise, you find yourself back in the world of just beating the hell out of them in training and deep caloric deficits.
Yep, pushing them harder and harder.
Which is not what people need long term. Yeah. Right. And so unfortunately, you're not doing the right thing long term for the individual. You're just trying to get quick whatever you can. And that actually is in direct conflict with what they need long term. Yeah. So that's always the challenge, right? That exists in the space. Yeah. So, okay. So you come on and we start showing you basically telling you that everything you learned was kind of wrong in this space. What was that like?
I did not trust you. It took a while to trust. It was hard. It was really hard because part of me wanted to hold strong to it and be like, no, like you're full of crap. And then the other part of me just felt betrayed, maybe like I thought that I was doing the right thing. And it's honestly like I felt like shame almost because I thought back to all of my clients that I had made worse. Yeah. Like I literally thought back to years of like personal training and like nutrition counseling and feeling terrible that I could not help them the way that I now knew I could. Right. And that's not a good feeling.
I went through, every great practitioner goes through that. Anyone listening, you're going to go through where the trial by error experience is that science is always evolving. Processes are always evolving. And you're going to realize, well, you're not evolving if you don't look back at yourself 10 years ago and go, that was a mistake. Yeah. Right. And the crazy thing is that when I was a trainer for like the height of my career for a good 5 years in there, I go back and I look at all those people today, not one of them is in a good health position.
Yeah.
Not one. And that's an L that I own. I did not know better, though.
Yeah.
I did not know better.
No, you truly think you have the best of intentions.
Right.
Yeah.
I really did. And I look back and I go, damn it.
Yeah.
And so the question isn't whether that's going to happen as a practitioner. That absolutely will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The things that we say today will actually be semi-wrong tomorrow because science can change. There will always be a better way to do something.
Yeah.
And we have to be open-minded and stay students. Right. But on the other hand, I can also acknowledge that like, I'm going to do something different about this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to continue to do the same thing because it's either what's expected of me.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's what's easy. Right. And you weren't one of those people. You said, I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you know, I can say you just blew by everybody else. I mean, a talent unlike any other. And so talk about your rise, because you're one of the fastest growing coaches I've ever seen. And you've now helped thousands of people. But like, what's been the difference now today with your career? How do you feel about it today versus when you were just out there with your standard dietetics tools?
I have hope, and I feel like there's opportunity, not just for my career path, but actual hope for the people that I work with, right? Like, I do feel like I'm playing a role in changing the trajectory of their quality of life. But then in terms of like my career path, I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. I growing up, I always had an entrepreneur spirit. Like, I was always just kind of built like that, but I didn't think that that was possible for me with the dietetics. So at a point I had kind of like accepted, like, this may be just the way that it is. So then being given back the opportunity to progress and be able to expand and like become successful and help people at the same time was pretty much everything I could have dreamed for myself at that point.
So here you go, from the pain to purpose to prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Young girl with a lot of functional health issues, finds fitness, turns it into a career in training, then a career in dietitian, then to find out this whole new world of functional nutrition and to become like a functional dietitian, right? To not making a lot, to then all of these changes, like both financially. I mean, I don't know how much you want to share, but I mean, compared to what you were making then, like, do you want to put a multiplier on it at least or something? Like how much did that change for you?
4 times.
4 times as much now as a functional nutritionist and more in the coaching space. And then the number of clients and outcomes has just been a 10x, right? To now being the head of a university to try to help other dietitians and other practitioners, right?
Yeah.
Do the same. What would be your advice for people that are in dietetic school? What would be your advice to you going into school now? That's a better way to ask it.
Probably not to settle, because I feel like you get in there and there's just so much overwhelm and you're kind of being pushed in certain directions. And at a point, your dreams for what you were hoping kind of die a little bit, and you just accept it. Like, you accept that this is the way it's going to be. This is the path that I'm going to take. And you kind of give up a little bit on maybe what you would call your childish dreams at the time, but I would say go for it.
I love it. So the first one is keep dreaming. Don't stop dreaming, right? Don't give up on your dreams. Don't tell anybody, don't let anyone tell you what you're limited to. Yeah. Right? You actually, a dietitian today, you are unlimited. I watch you. You can heal almost any condition today. Work with any kind of, whether it's an athlete or someone that's sick, right? Because that's another thing they don't teach in dietetics, really. Yeah. I mean, they do get into some athletics, but you learn later outside of it what performance really is like. Yeah. And so don't stop dreaming. And what would you tell dietitians now that are looking for a career change or coming out of school? What advice would you give them?
To find a community, because that's another reason that you might be tempted to not go for it, because you feel like you have to do it on your own. You don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. There's so many parts to business and all of the pieces that you need to do to be able to make it and be successful. And so you might just stop right there because you can't even imagine trying to do it independently.
Yeah. I think there's 3 things that we can say that they would need. One is the education, the additional education. Yep. 2 is the application. So they need to be more in a case study, going back to like an internship almost, whether they work for someone, right? Or they're the assistant for someone, or they just join like the MMU, Metabolic Mentor University, where they can actually just go through case studies all the time, right? They need that application. And then that last part really has to do with fellowship and agency. It's like being around people that are also doing the thing that you want to do, right? And being inspired by them.
They believe in something bigger, right? Because when you're in more of like that hospital setting, you don't always find the individuals that are dreaming bigger.
Right. Or getting a business coach that can encourage you in that right direction. But you've got to get around it. You got to get the exposure. I think that's the best word to probably use. Yeah. So it's education, application, and exposure.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what you need. And that really, to be honest with you, that extends past a dietitian, any coach, personal trainer. Those are the things you need. And don't stop dreaming. And then anything is possible, because here you are, 26 years old, head director of a university, one of the best dietitians in the field, making 4x the money that she was, and if she had not made the decision, right, you would not be here today.
No,
right? Any closing remarks? What do you think about the field of dietitians, dietetics, and where it can go? When you think about function and nutrition in this new world of where we're going, what do you have thoughts on that for the field of dietetics?
Oh, that's a big question. I think we still need people that specifically want to work in clinical care, medical care, to work like TPN, tube feeding, and things like that for dietetics. But I think that the education needs to have different trajectories in terms of their focuses, and more of the functional and integrative side needs to be brought in to the colleges. That's hard to find. You have to go to an extra program to get it, right? Yeah. And so I feel like we just need more accessibility for that.
We don't want to marginalize the great dietitians that are already out there doing great work.
Yeah.
That's not what this has been about today. It's just there's so many out there that ran into a field and have nothing and then get out.
And then give up, and they don't realize they could do something else. Like, you could still create real change and real impact, but they don't believe that they can. So they quit their RD license, and then they're just doing something completely unrelated.
Yeah. Dietetics should be first line care for almost every condition that is not acute in the United States today. And it's being stuck in a corner and used for very sporadic, rare things, or it's not the primary practitioner that you would run into with a health issue. That is an absolute travesty. They have the dietitians out there and practitioners that use functional nutrition. You are the change. You are the opportunity that the world needs in order to flip this lifestyle pandemic around on its head. And yet we're all standing on the sidelines. We're not very organized, and we're being put in the background for this overwhelming pill and procedure-based medical world. Yeah. When the solution is right there, and it's in all these amazing men and women that don't know where to take their careers.
Yeah.
So, Caroline, awesome. You're an inspiration. I hope you guys where can they find you?
The Simply Fit Dietitian.
All right. Where else? Yeah. Anywhere else?
My website,
that's right,
which is also the Simply Fit Dietitian.com.
So you definitely follow Caroline. Her social media is absolutely incredible. You can also come say hi, check her out in the 10100 Facebook group. Also with Metabolic Mentor University. Again, another great podcast. I love these kind of topics. Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again for another episode.